The hegemony's ultimatum arrived on a Tuesday. Commander Elena Vasquez stood in the communications center of Luna Base, watching the holographic projection of the alien diplomat flicker before her. The creature's 4 eyes gleamed with the cold certainty of a species that had never known defeat. Its translator rendered its words in perfect clinical English. You have 72 of your planetary rotations to surrender unconditionally. Submit to hegemony rule, and your species will be preserved as a client race. Refuse and face extinction. This offer will not be repeated. The projection vanished, leaving only the soft hum of machinery and the distant sound of someone's nervous breathing. Ma'am? Lieutenant Chen's voice was carefully controlled. Should we open a channel to Earth Command? Elena stared at the empty space where the alien had stood. Around the galaxy, 17 civilizations had received similar ultimatums over the past 3 centuries. 17 civilizations had chosen submission rather than face the hegemony's vast armadas. The lucky ones became factory worlds. The unlucky ones became graves. No, Elena said quietly. We don't respond. Ma'am? You heard me, Lieutenant. We don't respond at all. The silence that followed wasn't empty. It was pregnant with possibility. Elena could practically hear the gears turning in her officers' minds as they began to understand. For 3 days, the hegemony waited. Their massive dreadnoughts hung in space beyond Pluto's orbit, weapons charged, crews ready. They had done this dance before. Species either groveled or postured, but they always responded. Response meant engagement. Engagement meant the opportunity to demonstrate superior firepower and break their enemy's will. But humanity said nothing. On the 4th day, Admiral Zexhai himself transmitted to Earth. The reptilian commander's crest flared with irritation as he spoke to what he assumed was an empty void. Your silence will not save you. We know you received our terms. Respond, or we will take your silence as refusal and act accordingly. The broadcast reached every human receiver in the solar system. In bunkers on Earth, colonists on Mars, miners, in the asteroid belt, and scientists on Europa, all heard the aliens' words. All maintained their silence. The hegemony had protocol for this. After the second ultimatum went unanswered, they moved to demonstration of force. A single dreadnought accelerated toward Earth, its intention clear. Level a city to show humanity the price of defiance. The ship never made it past Jupiter. It wasn't destroyed in some dramatic space battle. There was no heroic last stand or desperate charge. Instead, it simply stopped. The massive vessel hung motionless in space, its crew unconscious, its systems powered down but undamaged. Admiral Zexhai demanded explanations from his fleet. Scans showed no weapon signatures, no energy discharges, no sign of any attack. The dreadnought was intact but inert, as if it had simply decided to take a nap. What the hegemony didn't understand was that humanity had been preparing for this moment for decades, not with weapons or shields, but with something far more dangerous: understanding. Dr. Sarah Kim had spent her life studying consciousness, mapping the neural patterns that gave rise to thought itself. Her breakthrough had come not in a laboratory, but in meditation. The realization that consciousness wasn't confined to biological structures. It was a field, a wave, something that could be projected and manipulated. When the first hegemony scouts had been detected years earlier, humanity's response hadn't been to build bigger guns. Instead, they had built something unprecedented, a consciousness network that spanned the entire solar system. Every human mind linked, not in some hive mind nightmare, but in a vast, subtle web of shared awareness. The hegemony's ships weren't destroyed, they were simply persuaded to sleep. Their crews dreamed peaceful dreams while humanity's collective will gently but inexorably shut down their vessels' systems. More ships were sent. All suffered the same fate. The hegemony's greatest strength, their overwhelming military might, became irrelevant in the face of an enemy that fought with thoughts instead of weapons. Admiral Zexhai grew desperate. He broadcast increasingly frantic messages toward Earth, demanding response, threatening annihilation, pleading for explanation. Each transmission was met with the same terrible silence, the silence of a species that had transcended the need for words. On the 10th day, something unprecedented happened. The Admiral's personal guard, loyal soldiers who had served him for decades, quietly laid down their weapons. Not in rebellion or fear, but in sudden, inexplicable peace. They smiled at their commander with genuine compassion before settling into meditation. HFY found himself alone on his bridge, surrounded by crew members who had simply stopped fighting. They weren't dead or controlled. They were awake in a way they had never been before. The rage and aggression that had driven the hegemony for millennia was simply gone, replaced by something that felt like coming home after a long, pointless war. The Admiral's own mind began to quiet. The constant noise of ambition and dominance that had defined his existence started to fade. For the first time in his life, HFY experienced true silence. In that silence, he finally understood. Humanity hadn't surrendered because they couldn't be broken. They hadn't fought because they didn't need to. They had achieved something the hegemony, for all their technological might, had never imagined possible. They had evolved beyond violence itself. The last transmission from the hegemony fleet was not a threat or demand. It was a simple message broadcast in the Admiral's own voice. "We understand now. We're going home." The ships turned and departed, not in defeat, but in transformation. Word spread throughout hegemony space of the humans who answered demands for submission with something more powerful than any weapon. The silence of a species that had learned to wage peace. And in that silence, the galaxy began to change.